I'm Dr. Fiona Lovely, and this is the Not Your Mother's Menopause podcast. I'm taking the taboos of menopause and perimenopause and bringing light to the dark. No bullshit, no shame. It's time for us to gain a new paradigm in female health, out with the old and in with the new, and I'm bringing fresh perspectives from someone in the arena. I've been practicing women's health for nearly 20 years, and I'm spilling the tea on what it means to live at midlife, knowing that the best is yet to come. I'm sharing my Gen X approach to living through this transition. Sassy, a bit sweary, and always honest. Tactical tips and instantly usable information is my aim. I hope to make you laugh and that you learn something new that helps you embrace the change. Together, we bring power to the peri. Onward to the podcast. Hello, ladies. Dr. Fiona Lovely here for the Not Your Mother's Menopause podcast. I'm excited to bring to you a fellow warrior in women's health who also happens to be a Canadian gal just like me, Dr. Sarah Vadeboncoeur, naturopathic doctor. Now, I have followed Dr. Sarah on Instagram for years, and I was just thrilled to hear that she wanted to come on the show. And she has her own podcast called the Fatigue Fixer Podcast. And that is indeed what she and I talk about in this discussion today is fatigue. Oh my God. Recently, I had a conversation with a patient who said to me, something along the lines of, do you feel tired all the time, Dr. Lovely? And I laughed. I'm like, actually, I think what she asked was the last time I felt rested. And I laughed. Even it makes me laugh just to think about it. Oh, I don't know. The last time I felt fully rested was probably 20 years ago. So, it makes you wonder what's changed, right? What is it that makes us so tired all the time, especially if we've got the sleep bit nailed down, which I feel like I do now after many years of struggling. And the deeper I get into my own perimenopause, the less that's an issue for me, thank God. So there is hope out there for you if you are having troubles with sleep. It's likely to get much, much better the less of the tidal waves of estrogen and progesterone that you have going on. But this is a really big topic, discussing fatigue and women's health. And Sarah is an expert at it. She talks about it with her people all the time. And I asked her, what are the big causes of fatigue? And it turns out that many of those things have little tweaks, little levers that we can pull to make things better. One of the things she and I discussed that I'm still thinking about many hours after recording the episode is she said, what's our mental load? And she referred to it as the number of tabs open on your browser. And boy, can I relate to that in a really big way. And we don't get the rest because we've got all of these things going in our mind all the time. And, sometimes it's not just about a B12 deficiency or not enough sleep or metabolic changes that can happen to us, but it can be, in a way, the mental prison that we impose upon ourselves. And I say that with love because I am absolutely the number one person to be doing those things too. So it's really made me think about it. This was quite a broad-ranging conversation. We get down into the feminine dirt, if you will. We talk about the menopausal anger, the menopausal rage. How do you manage it? And Sarah had some really interesting thoughts on where that anger comes from. And again, I'm still thinking about her answers to those questions I had. And finally, we talk about iron deficiency anemia. And this is a real problem for women's health in particular. Women, once we get to those early perimenopause places, or even early to mid, we can find ourselves in a deep anemia hole and have little support from our physicians. And so Sarah has great information on that for all of us. And she also has a course that she teaches on how to correct iron deficiency anemia in particular. So let me introduce my guest. Dr. Sarah Vadeboncoeur is a naturopathic doctor and host of the Fatigue Fixer podcast. For more than a decade, she's helped women fix their fatigue and get the health care they deserve. Sarah believes that women make powerful leaders, and she wants you to have the energy you need to show up fully in your life. Sounds pretty good. Through her clinical practice and her online programs, Dr. Sarah teaches women to fix their fatigue, embrace their changing body, and navigate perimenopause with ease. Sarah grew up always being told she was too loud, and now she's proud to be using her voice to help women understand why we're so tired and what we can do to start fixing our fatigue. When she's not working, you can find Sarah drinking strong coffee, reading all the books, and staying active so she can keep up with her 8-year-old son. Okay, you can find Dr. Sarah on her website, drsarahv.ca, and she's at Sarah Vadeboncoeur on Instagram, which I will link that in the show notes for you so you can go. Her Instagram is packed full of little goodies and important information for women. I learned so much when I go there, so I encourage you to do the same. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I enjoyed having it with Dr. Sarah Vadeboncoeur. AG1, the way I start my healthy days. With my AG1, I get a daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre- and probiotics, adaptogens, and more. It's daily self-care for my busy life. It helps me fill the nutrition gaps, supports immune health, and supports gut for healthy digestion. It's once a day, easy to drink, and packed with bioavailable ingredients in a convenient formula. I am proud to have had AG1 as a sponsor of this show for many years. It's a nutritional supplement I stand behind and I take every single day. Start with AG1 and notice the difference for yourself. It's a great first step to investing in your health. Try AG1 and get a free bottle of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase at drinkag1.com/Fiona Lovely. That's a $48 value for free if you go to drinkag1.com/Fiona Lovely. Check it out. Let's talk about stress for a minute. Stress isn't just hard on your mental health, it's also expensive for your biology. If you're dealing with chronic stress, you may want to take a good mineral supplement. Because it turns out when you're constantly stressed, your body burns through a lot more minerals than usual. Chronic daily stress depletes magnesium, potassium, selenium, zinc, and more. Even worse, those mineral deficiencies make future stress hit you harder. If you want to break the cycle of chronic stress, you have to replenish your mineral stores. Minerals make you more resilient to the negative effects of stress, helping you get back on your feet. That's why I love Beam Minerals. Beam makes things easy. You just take a capful of concentrated, mineral-rich liquid each morning. It tastes like water, and it gives you every essential mineral your body needs to deal with the stress in the right ratios with high bioavailability. I've been using Beam for a while now. You'll feel it working within days. You'll have way more energy, and you'll be amazed by the difference it makes for your stress levels. Give Beam a try. Head to beamminerals.com. That's BEAMMINERALS.com and use the code LOVELY for 20% off your first order. Thanks, Beam. This is the Not Your Mother's Menopause podcast. I'm Dr. Fiona Lovely, and today I have my guest, a fellow Canuck, I love it, Dr. Sarah Vadeboncoeur. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. And as we were just talking about, you and I have followed each other on the gram for years.
We have. I feel like we know each other, even
Is
though this is the first time we're actually
This
meeting.
is the first time we're meeting. And it's
Yeah.
weird how that can happen, but I just want to thank you for your amazing content on Instagram because so often I have seen your face pop up and remind me of the simplest thing that I could do to make myself feel better. So thank you for that.
It's so nice to hear that. And that's something I realized very early on in my career that when I made things too complicated and I sent women away with like a 3-page plan of action, they literally never came back. And I don't blame them because it was way too much. And the longer I practice medicine, so I've been a naturopathic doctor now for almost 15 years, the more I'm reminded how the simple things that we do on a daily basis are the most powerful. And so I think one of the things that's hard with something like Instagram is that everyone wants the like shiny, exciting hacks. And those
But
can be great, but if
yes.
you're not mastering the basics, it's like, don't worry about the red light therapy or the shiny, like, don't worry about the advanced maneuvers if you're not mastering the basics. And that's why I try to remind women that those are the things we should spend our precious time and energy on because they are the things that get the best results.
Absolutely. So I mean, there's so much there I want to pick up in a thread, but give us the basics. Like, Sarah, what are the basics of health? Because the thing is, nobody teaches us this.
I
And
know.
those of us that are in the menopause transition right now, we grew up in the shitty diet industry of the 80s and 70s, right? And maybe 90s as well. So, what are the basics of health? Break it down for us, please.
The basics that I'm always checking in on and coaching my patients around, number one is nutrition. So, nutrition is a perfect example of something that actually isn't that complicated, but that we've made very complicated, right? If you and I took most of our patients into the grocery store, they could really easily point to what healthy food is, right? Most of us inherently know what a healthy diet looks like. Where we often run into trouble is that we're looking at all kinds of other people to tell us what to eat. And they're often saying completely conflicting things. So then we
Mhm.
get confused and overwhelmed and we stop trusting ourselves. And this is one of the things that I'm very passionate about, specifically for women, because most of us have outsourced our nutrition to diets and trainers and nutritionists and all these other people who convinced us that they knew best in terms of how we need to feed ourselves. When in fact, most of us, if we ignore that noise, we know how to put a healthy plate together. So
Mhm.
I always like to approach nutrition from a place of not what do we need to cut out and what do I need to remove, but what are the things that are going to make you feel satisfied and bring pleasure back into eating and give you some of those like key things that we know you need, especially as you're going through the menopause transition. And the menopause transition is hard because a lot of us, most of us, are experiencing body changes. And they're body changes that we've been told our whole lives are the worst thing that can happen to us, like weight gain and belly fat and whatever else. So a lot of these
Loss of
like
libido, vaginal
loss of libido,
dryness.
like all the
Yes.
things, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a time, and this is very well studied. It's a time, sadly, where there's an uptick in disordered eating because women again are unhappy with what's happening with their bodies. They often feel confused and overwhelmed and don't know what to do. And so they'll try anything to try to keep the weight under control. And a lot of times they get sucked back into the latest like diet du jour. So that's a very long way to say nutrition is one of the basics. And again, we complicate it. The second one is sleep, which we can talk more about, but we know that the vast majority of women struggle with sleep as they're going through perimenopause and menopause. The third one would be exercise.
Mhm.
And exercise for me is intentional, meaning you're probably like putting on your running shoes and your like special exercise clothes when you're exercising. So that's like more intentional exercise. And then the part that relates to that is movement. We know that women going through menopause move less because we're more tired, we're more grumpy, we have a lot of shit on our plate. And so
Mhm.
we literally just spend more time sitting and not moving.
Not to mention joint pain. Things help. Things
A
hurt.
100% things
Yeah.
hurt.
Yep.
Exactly. Again, some women are like where I live right now in Ottawa, and probably there's a ton of snow and ice. So some women are legitimately like afraid to go out and fall or they don't like the cold. So there's a million reasons why we don't move as much. And then the last piece would be stress management. And
Mhm.
this is, again, can be a very complicated pillar, but it's something that we really need to practice on a regular basis and check in on a regular basis. And within that, one of the things I'm always talking to women about is your relationships and your support system, because that's
Ooh,
a huge part of how we manage our stress. And a huge part of what influences our stress is who we're around. Who are we spending time with? Do we like
yes.
these people? Do
Yes.
we not like these people? So, yeah, nutrition, exercise, movement, sleep,
Mhm.
and stress management would be
So
probably
good.
the five big pillars that
That's
I
so
would,
good.
yeah.
Well, and there's little tiny tweaks that you can do along the way. We think we have to do these great big things, but as your Instagram stories and reels and posts have said, just the tiniest thing can make a huge difference.
Yeah. Most of us know that when we try to do the complete overhauls, it doesn't last long term. So, a perfect example is with exercise. So, a couple years ago, I decided I was going to pick up strength training. Now, the way that most of us would approach strength training is we would say something like, I'm going to start going to the gym 3 to 5 days a week. And you might be motivated and excited about that for 2, 3 months if you're lucky. And
If
chances
you're
are,
lucky.
if you're very lucky, but chances are at the end of that year, you're probably going to the gym 0 times.
Yeah.
What I did instead is I said, I'm committing to 1 day a week. I'm going to do 1 day a week of strength training. And because I aimed very low, I showed up at the gym probably 48 out of whatever, 52, weeks out of the year. And it made it so easy to add in because I aimed for something very small, which allowed me to be consistent. I wasn't aiming for 3 times a week. I was just aiming for one. It was easy to add into my routine. It was easy to create this new habit. And what I've done this year is now that that habit is built, now my goal this year is twice a week. And anytime I've done that for me and for my patients, we're so much more likely to stick with it long term when we do something small and reasonable, as opposed to aiming for perfection and then crashing and burning because it's not sustainable.
Yeah, and I love the way that feels. Like I'm a body check-in kind of person. And so,
Mhm.
when I hear you talk about 3 to 5 times a week, what I hear in my own head is, "Oh, girlfriend, you're so far behind. Why even bother starting?" Right? But then when you say once a week, my body goes, "Oh yeah, I can do that."
Exactly. And we forget like our brain is running the show. I mean, you know this better than
Yes.
anybody,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
When I say my goal is 3 times a week, and let's say I get there twice a week, my brain doesn't say, Congratulations, you worked out twice a week. My brain says, You failed. You didn't
Well
hit your
done.
3 times a week. And
Yes.
when you fail at something, even though you haven't really failed, but you feel like you failed, that does not give you any momentum. It makes you feel bad. Whereas when I aim for my once a week and I'm able to do that 90% of the time, I'm hitting my goal every week. And that creates momentum. And
Mhm.
momentum is what allowed me, after a whole year of literally just doing it once a week, to say, I'm ready now to do it twice a week.
Yeah. It's such a different feeling.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
That's
when we try to do things from a place of like shame and guilt and feeling like you have to or you should. I always say if the word should comes out of your mouth, I want you to check yourself because you're probably doing something because you heard it somewhere or someone made you feel like you have to do it. Like, and what you said is so important, and this is something I really encourage women to do is like check into your body, right? Find an exercise that you don't dread. Like I do a dance class on Monday nights. It is the funnest hour of my week by far. It happens to be a form of exercise that gets my heart rate up, but that's honestly the least important part to me. I smile that entire time. So exercise and other health habits don't have to be a chore. They don't have to be painful. We just need to figure out how can we do it in a way that feels good, because things that feel good, you're going to repeat. If you
Mhm.
hate yoga and you're dragging yourself to yoga every night and you hate
Please
it,
stop.
you're
Please
not,
stop.
just stop. That's not helping you. Like,
No.
if you're counting down the minutes during a yoga class, it's not calming your nervous system. So just
No.
do something else.
Exactly. And because we both have a clinical practice, I'm sure you've seen this, where you get the woman that comes in, she's somewhere in her 40s, and she's just like, I'm getting fat. I'm now going to the gym every single day, and I freaking hate it. I hate everything. I hate the treadmill. I hate the like, and you're, and of course, she's shocked when I say to her, well, the first thing you need to do is stop going to the gym and eat more food. Right? Because there's that hole. So we're just coming up against all of that old programming that we have. What works for us in terms of movement nutrition when we're 25
Yeah.
is not the same when we're 45.
Yeah.
And that's part of what you and I do, is we're educating people about that.
Well, and I think the other big part of it is also just readjusting why you do things. If the only reason or the main motivation behind your exercise and your nutrition is weight loss, it's going to be disappointing every single time, especially while you're going through perimenopause and menopause. Like, I can tell you, I did not lose a single pound from adding strength training. And that's okay, because
Yeah.
that isn't my goal. My goal is to have strong muscles and bones so that when I'm 80 years old, I can carry my own groceries and not have to
Yes.
rely on my child to come do groceries for me every week.
Recently I interviewed Dr. Tina Moore on the show, and she said to me her motivation when she started building muscle was, she said, give me an ass and make sure I don't break a hip. So,
I love it. Yeah. Yeah.
and I was
And
like,
again, like,
I'm
I've
literally
always
taking
had,
notes going, can I do
yeah,
that too?
I know, but it's so important. So I've always had a big bum and big legs. And for years, it was like when I was younger, it's like must make smaller legs, must shrink butt. And now I'm like, what a friggin' gift this
Gift.
big butt and thighs are, because it means I'm friggin' strong. And that
Yes.
strength is
Yes.
gonna help me not just now, but in 20 and 30 years. So again, my goal with my strength training is not weight loss. If it was, I would have quit a long time ago. My
Yeah.
goal is to be strong, to feel
Strong.
confident, and to set myself up. I'm 42, so I
Yeah.
know that I'm in that stage where muscle and bone are starting to drop. I'm
Yes.
trying to offset that as much as I can.
Which is ideal. I know I'm the same way. I have super muscular legs, always have. My mother had them, my grandmother had them. So that's one of those genetic things. I'm like, thank goodness.
Yeah,
So grateful for it. But
absolutely.
what I love too about this phase of life is not just the doing things to be skinny, but doing things to be strong. And that means movement and how we eat. And I know I have profoundly changed the way I eat in the last 10 years, where I'm really optimizing the protein and digestion and fiber and these
Yes.
kinds of things. And then whatever I feel like I want to eat after I've taken care of those bits, I'll eat. But the crazy part is when you eat enough damn protein, you don't crave these other things that are not so good. Where was that information when I was 20?
Yeah, we were still in the like snack well and 100-calorie snack era,
You are
probably.
not. The era exactly where the was everything was zero fat, but it was
Yeah,
loaded with sugar,
yeah,
and the messaging was you can drink all the alcohol you want because it doesn't have fat in it. Well, I know it's bananas. And
yeah.
then we found out that the diet some of the diet industry leaders of that era were actually raging alcoholics. Like, well, that explains a lot.
Sure does. Sure does.
Okay, before we get too much further down this road, please tell me, Sarah, I'd love to hear how you chose a profession of naturopathic medicine.
Honestly, I've said this many times. It was kind of accidental. I went to university thinking I would go to like traditional medical school. And on day one, the dean was like, who wants to go to medical school? And everyone's hand shot up. And he was like, just so you know, only 3 or 4 of you are going to make it. And he just killed our dream on day one, which is terrible. But It forced me
Yeah.
to look at other options. And one of the things I came across literally like almost by accident was naturopathic medicine. And I literally, when I signed up for that very long, very expensive program, I had never seen a naturopath. I didn't actually fully understand what the heck they did, but I was like, I like the philosophy. That sounds interesting. And I had always been interested in health. So I think there was a part of me that just knew it was the right thing. And luckily for me, once I got there, it was the perfect thing. Um, but it was kind of like looking back, I cannot believe I signed myself up with so little information.
Yep. Yep.
But
Yep. I get that.
that's
I
how it
remember.
was.
That's fascinating.
Yeah,
And did you go to school in Canada?
I did. I went to the college in Toronto.
Oh, yes, very good.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember, so I'm 51. I am a Canadian, except for the years that I was going to school in the States. I've lived in Canada. And it wasn't until I was in chiropractic college that I heard the words naturopathic medicine, naturopathic doctor. And I was like, what the hell is that? So, what is it about? I mean, I was in my late 20s. So, how is it that I lived in Canada all that time and never heard about naturopathic medicine? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I had never heard about it either. I think it wasn't as big of a profession. Like if you go to the college and you look at the graduating classes in the 80s and 90s, there's maybe like 12 people, and now they're graduating over like 100 naturopaths
Okay.
every year. So I think it just wasn't as big of a profession, and it wasn't something that people were seeking out as much. And realistically, right now, the way that our healthcare system is, sadly, is that a lot of people are not getting the care that they want or they need. And so they're looking for alternatives. So a lot of women in particular, especially as they're going through their perimenopause and menopause, are just looking for extra support, more information. They might want to work with a woman who gets it. So I think we've really grown as a profession in terms of people just seeking out a second opinion or a different perspective to complement. And I want to be very clear, I'm not anti-medical doctor. I have a medical doctor. I love him very much. I'm happy he's there. But we also need to be realistic about what we can expect out of our healthcare system. And especially right now, a lot of
Mhm.
people just want more and they can't get
Yes.
it. Can't get
Yes,
it.
it's true. I remember hearing years ago that it was the boomer generation that was driving the interest in what was called alternative medicines at that time. Even though I tend to think about what we do as the original medicine, you know.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
that shit disturbing. Maybe I'll just put that down for it. Maybe that'll be episode 2, Sarah.
There you go. Yes. I'm here for it.
Yes, good, good. Yeah, I think having those alternative approaches is really important. And of course, for my listeners in the US, not everyone in the US has access to medical care.
Mhm.
And the medical care that is accessible is often suspect, depending on, okay, who's profiting from this, whose recommendations are these? Is it big pharma? Is it, is a surgery being pushed because of economic reasons rather than, so I think there's a lot of distrust in the system. And I know there's very much a problem with access to care in the United States in particular, especially if you're outside of the big cities, then there may not be an OBGYN in the area. And then you add on top of that the fact that 80% of OBGYNs in the US have had very little training on perimenopause and menopause. They've had a boatload of it on obstetrics,
Yeah.
but very little. And I think there's just a real gap in care for sure. So let me ask this question of you while we're talking about naturopathic medicine. Why would someone seek out a naturopath?
So if we look at the tools that medical doctors have, the two big tools they have are going to be medications and surgeries. And sometimes that's exactly what you need, and that's a great tool. But those tools are not going to fix the vast majority of things, especially when we're looking at menopause, but even when we're looking at chronic disease, right? Medications might help manage the symptoms, but they're not fixing the actual problem for the most part. So
Mhm.
when we look at the tools that a naturopathic doctor has, we're able to spend more time to chat about your nutrition. I'm able to ask about what's going on with your stress and your sleep. I'm able to advise on supplements that may be beneficial. So we have the benefit of time, and we also have the benefit of just looking at health in a more holistic way. And again, sadly, the way that most medical doctors are trained, but also the way that they're paid, they don't have time to ask you about 8 things. There maybe you'll be lucky if you get to chat about 1 or 2 different things.
Hmm.
And they don't have the time, nor are they compensated to chat with you about how to get more fiber or how to get a better night's sleep. They're going to write a prescription because that's what's quick and easy. And that's a lot of times what some people want, right? So it's just a very different way of looking at the body as a whole unit where everything is connected. The beauty of seeing a naturopathic doctor is that if you have multiple things going on, they're probably not just going to treat all of those as separate. They're going to see what are some of the underlying or like common threads that might connect a lot of this.
Hmm.
And they're going to help to support you, whether or not you take medication. They're going to offer you additional or complementary things that can help to support your health.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think most people want that. They don't necessarily want to skip right to, okay, I'm going to take a medication for the rest of my life, or, oh, that organ's broken, just whip it out. I think most people feel, I would like to think that most people that are aware that there are alternatives want to know how they can heal themselves. And ultimately, that's what you're talking about is the tools for you to heal yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And to have the support, right? This is something that's also been really well studied. We know that the relationship between a doctor and a patient is a huge part of the medicine. So
Hmm.
when you're seeing a practitioner that you know, that you trust, that knows your story and isn't just focusing on one thing at a time, that alone has huge therapeutic value. So a lot of times my patients literally come to me with a prescription that their family doctor gave and they're unsure and they literally just want me to like say it's okay, because they trust my opinion because we've developed that relationship and I know their health history and their family history. So those like no matter what kind of practitioner you choose to work with, finding someone where there's that really strong relationship is also a huge part of that, like
Yes,
the medicine.
yes. I think when I was a new practitioner, it was sort of kind of a free for all. I'm like, whoever feels like they can benefit from my services, come on in.
Yeah.
And as I've matured in my practice now, 20 years, I do a consult on everybody because they have to like me. I have to like them. If those two things are not there, then we are better off right up front saying, you know what, I got somebody else for you that I think is better. And it's going to be a better use of your time and money and my time
Mhm.
than, you and I working together. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen sometimes. And it's a really, I think it's a very good tool. And most GPs I know do a meet and greet.
Yeah, it's true. They do.
Yeah.
They want to know what they're signing up for, and I don't blame them. I don't blame.
No,
Yeah.
I don't either. I don't
Yeah.
either. Because I work with concussion, traumatic brain injuries, I see some pretty nasty behaviors on human beings. And if you're showing me that stuff right up front, like I have a little bit more patience for those people that are, having a hard time with actually interacting with humaning, basically. But we get through that pretty fast. Anyways, so you have a podcast called the Fatigue Fixer podcast, correct?
I do.
Oh God, I love that. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. Like the most nebulous thing that we can experience is fatigue, and it can be an indication of small things and big things. And in a time where perimenopausal women can struggle to even get the most basic care, women's health care, and then you add fatigue on top of it, chances are it's probably being ignored. So can you talk about fatigue with us for a little bit?
Yeah. So part of what I love to do is to help women understand that there are different types of fatigue and there's different areas that we want to look at and explore. So the first place I always start, because that's usually what brought them in, are some of the physical reasons why women are tired. Like what is literally happening inside the body that could make you tired? The number one place I look are nutrient deficiencies. The 3 that I always screen for are low iron, low vitamin B12, and low vitamin D. And if you still have a period, and a lot of women, as they start to go through perimenopause, in the beginning, often periods are coming more frequently and they're often heavier,
Mhm.
that puts you at risk for iron deficiency. So these are such simple blood tests that every woman should be offered, because if you're low in any of these three things, a simple supplement can fix the problem and can be an absolute game changer in terms
Mhm.
of how you're feeling. So
Mhm.
I always look at vitamin levels. I'm also looking at thyroid. We know that anytime there's a major hormonal transition like pregnancy and menopause, the risk of thyroid issues goes up. So I'm always just making sure that thyroid looks good. And then I'm also looking at what's happening metabolically. Are we seeing inflammation? Are we seeing signs of insulin resistance? Are we starting to see changes in terms of cholesterol levels? Because that is often a clue that some of our diet and exercise behaviors or non-behaviors are starting to catch up with us. And we know that this is often a time where some of those cardiovascular risk factors start to increase. And the episode you did, I think it was the last episode with the cardiologist, was excellent, talking about some of those concerns. But really important to look at some of those like metabolic markers. So those are some of the things that we can easily test for. Again, some of those common physical reasons. The other physical things are going to be sleep. Again, we know that a lot of women struggle with sleep. Women also tend to be underflagged and underdiagnosed with sleep apnea. So that's something I screen. Anyone who's sleeping and is not feeling rested, I'm always screening for sleep apnea, because that is more common, especially through that menopause transition. Um, and then we also know that like a lot of what's happening in perimenopause is happening to our brain, right? A lot of those early symptoms are from the brain
Mhm.
basically remodeling and trying to figure out how to function with fluctuating hormone levels.
Yep.
So then that brings us into more of the like mental fatigue. This is where you're forgetful. You start to worry that you're getting Alzheimer's because you can't remember anybody's name. You are having trouble focusing and that kind of stuff. So that's another huge part of it, is mental
Mhm.
fatigue. And a lot of that is physical, in the sense that if you have low iron or you're not sleeping, all of those impact that. But the other thing, and this is something we explore a lot on the podcast, is like, what's your mental load right now? How many tabs do you have open in your mind on a daily
Is
basis?
there a limit?
That's right. Well, if your brain looks like my computer, there is no limit, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, it's not surprising that we start to see a lot of mental fatigue, because if you're trying to maintain the mental load that most of us walk into within our 40s, and then you start to layer in perimenopause changes, it doesn't work. Like, women really start to struggle mentally.
Mm. So important.
It's so important. And we can talk more about this, but this is
Please.
also important for women to understand, because the solutions to those things are all very different, right? Iron deficiency is not treated the same way as mental fatigue. If we have mental fatigue, we need to look at literally like what I call brain breaks. How do we reduce the mental load of all the things that you are trying to manage in a day? And how do we make deposits in that mental energy bank so that you have more resiliency and more reserve specifically in that area? And then the third big category is emotional fatigue.
Mm.
This is when you start to get real cranky. This is
Mhm.
when you lose your shit on your kids. This is when you want to say mean things to your boss because
Mhm.
you're annoyed. So when we start to see a lot of like more sadness, irritability, anxiety, we start to see some of those like mood swings, emotional stuff come up, then a lot of times that's a sign that women are emotionally exhausted.
Okay, how do we fix that?
I know. Well, that's the $1 million question. So the first thing is to actually just like tune in and acknowledge what is coming up. Because for most of us, we have been taught to suppress a lot of those things, right?
Mhm.
We're very happy to show people when we're happy and things are going well. We're not so good at showing people or admitting when we are depressed and tired and burnt out and pissed. And most of us have never seen anger in particular. I find anger fascinating, and it's something that a lot of women start to feel more of as they go through
Mhm.
perimenopause.
Mhm.
Like most of us have never seen healthy anger modeled in another woman,
Correct. Yes.
right?
Yes.
And
Keep talking.
all the things that most of us have heard and seen about anger is negative. She's a
Mhm.
bitch. She's
Mhm.
out of control. She's a nag. She's hormonal. She's blah blah blah. You can't give her the new codes. She might, everything that we associate. That's the bullshit people say why we can't have a female president. But anyway, that's a whole other
Okay,
conversation.
so we're gonna Fiona, don't say it. Just
Say it. Say
no.
it. But this is part of the
So we're gonna give
problem.
it to a freaking psychopath who's a
Exactly.
rapist?
Yeah,
Give
yeah,
me a
we will.
break.
Because he's more stable. He's more stable. But this
Jesus.
is like what you just did is I'm not going to say it. How many times in a day do you do that?
Oh yeah.
How many times in a day are you pissed off or anxious or angry or whatever, and you paste a smile on your face and you
Oof.
just keep doing it because you
Yes.
don't have time to show people what's going on? Or you feel like if I let myself feel how I feel, it will never end. Like it will be the end of things.
Yes, I love how this just played out because, I can feel when my listeners take a collective gasp. And I'm pretty sure that just happened, Sarah. And I know watching Oprah, how she did her show for so many years, I remember her saying she knew when things would resonate. And I feel like what we just played out without any prompting, by the way. I I'm a good Canadian. I try to be apolitical on the show. I know we're living in an era where that can be kind of difficult to do. So I just had to put that out there. But I mean, you demonstrated it perfectly. Like, how many times do we do that? Even though you and I are probably well versed in this very thing, we still catch ourselves doing it, don't we?
100%.
Yeah.
Because most of us associate and I'm using air quotes here, negative emotions as things that are not meant to be shared and broadcast.
Oof. That's the good girl thing, right?
That's the good girl thing. So what
The people
happens?
pleaser.
Like,
Yep.
I'm sure you've had this. Like, when you want to say something so bad and you can literally feel like a lump in your throat or like
Yeah.
you can feel it. Think about the energetic cost of
Oof.
suppressing your anger, of suppressing your sadness, of suppressing your resentment, which sadly is apparently the number one emotion in most relationships. Yeah,
Oof.
yeah.
Wow.
Like the energetic cost, I always like to think of like if you've ever tried to hold a beach ball underwater. To me, that's what emotional suppression is the everyday we're trying to keep this ball underwater because we know that if we let go, it's going to shoot up and water's going to splash everywhere and everyone's going to get wet,
Hmm.
right? And that
Yes.
that would be unfortunate. So we
Yeah.
literally like if you wonder why women are emotionally tired,
Yes.
we are
That's it.
suppressing how we feel while also a lot of the time trying to actively manage other people's feelings,
Hmm.
whether that is your child, whether that is your spouse, your mom, your sister, your
Yeah.
boss.
Boss.
So
Yeah.
many of us are tiptoeing around and making sure that we do everything we can to keep the peace so that everybody else gets to have emotional health. And meanwhile, we are like seething and exhausted and resentful on the inside because we have not acknowledged or let ourselves
Hmm.
feel
Hmm.
whatever it is that's there.
Huge. Huge. I think many times I'm asked about menopausal rage. What
Mm-hmm.
do I do about the rage I
Mm-hmm.
feel?
Mm-hmm.
And to which I always say, first of all, we've got generations of dealing with the fucking patriarchy. Of course, we're pissed off. We have
Yeah,
every right.
agreed. Agreed. I call it the awakening. I feel like something happens in and around 40 where
Yep.
women start to look around and they're like, what the actual
Yeah.
fuck?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's why we get mad because we're like, this is
We've been
bullshit.
tolerating this. Yeah.
We've been
Yeah.
tolerating so much and we're no
Yeah.
longer willing to tolerate it. And that's a good thing, even though it feels deeply uncomfortable when it
Yes.
happens.
We are actually earning the explicit category on this episode today.
I know, sorry.
No, please, please. Are
Yeah,
you kidding? I love it.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so I just, as I often say in the office, if you as a perimenopausal woman are not using the word fuck on the regular, you're not awake. You're not paying attention.
100%. And
Yes.
you're probably making yourself more tired because you probably want to scream it and you're not letting
Yeah.
yourself.
Yes.
Can I share two things about anger that may be helpful for the listeners?
Please do. Please do.
So, again, anger is an emotion of action. The reason anger shows up is it's trying to get you to change something. When most of us feel angry, what we assume is I'm a terrible person. I'm a bad mom. I'm a bad insert whatever words you use. What I want you to start to think about is not I'm a bad person. I want you to think something in this situation right now does not work for me. And two of the things that often are going to trigger anger is your need not being met. That could be your need for rest. Your need, a big one for me is a need for quiet. I have an 8-year-old, so quiet is hard to come by in my house.
Yes.
It
Yes.
could be a need for doing something that you actually like and not just spending your whole day doing things for other people. So there's usually a need that you have that has not been met, or there is a boundary that's being crossed.
Mm.
So next time you feel yourself getting angry and you start to go into I'm a bad whatever, I want you to try to catch yourself and reframe, there's nothing wrong with me, there's something wrong with this. And when you start to figure out what's wrong with this, you can take that action. The reason anger feels so deeply uncomfortable is that it's trying to get you to do something. If anger didn't feel bad, we wouldn't do anything about it.
Yes.
Same thing
Yes.
with anxiety. Anxiety is telling you something doesn't feel safe. What doesn't feel safe? What doesn't feel good in my environment, in my life? Right? All of these emotions are just feedback. When you feel great and happy and connected, take that as a sign that I need to do more of whatever is happening right now. When
Mm.
I feel angry and down and anxious, it's my body's way of saying something in this does not work. Can we do less of some of these things?
Mm. So interesting. So you said anger shows up when a boundary's been crossed or our need is not being met.
Yeah,
Girlfriend, you've said a mouthful.
I know.
So one of the things I talk about with because oftentimes women will ask that question, why am I so emotional? Like we're somehow broken. Well, first of all, our hormones make us so that at certain points of the month, we're all about connection. And that way we can procreate. This is how this works. Other times of the month, we're way more inwardly focused, etc. There's so many different aspects of it. But as those hormones start to fluctuate and go away, we lose the people pleasing, number one.
Yeah.
We no longer have the biological impetus to connect. And we have unmanaged anger, which leaves us with the proverbial no fucks left to give. And that's where the fatigue comes in with all of that too. I think that's an important part of that to acknowledge that for women. Want to know the biggest health secret few are talking about? Everything, I mean everything, starts in your gut. But every day, your gut is fighting a silent war against processed foods, work stress, pesticides in your food, and even toxins in the air you breathe. And when your gut's in trouble, your whole body feels it. Here's where it gets crazy. Most people aren't spending money on probiotics that even work. Why? Because up to 99% of traditional brands die in your stomach acid before they reach your gut. You might as well flush them down the drain. That's what makes Just Thrive spore-based probiotic completely different. Just Thrive is the only one clinically proven to arrive 100% alive in your gut. And it does something no other probiotic can. It turns your gut into an antioxidant factory, creating protective compounds exactly where you need them the most. For you, that means better digestion, healthy immunity, more energy, and easier weight management. Just Thrive Probiotics comes in a capsule or a berry flavored gummy, so there's an option for everyone in the family. Plus, it's backed by an industry leading guarantee. Ready to transform your health in 2025? Take the 90-day challenge. Love the way you feel, or get a full product refund, no questions asked. To join the gut health revolution and take control of your health today, visit justthrivehealth.com and save 20% on your first 90-day bottle of Just Thrive probiotic with the promo code LOVELY. Don't forget to check out all of their other natural, clinically proven products too, like their newest product, Digestive Bitters, or Focus and Memory, Gluten Away, and more. That's justthrivehealth.com, promo code LOVELY. Ever feel like food just sits in your stomach like a bowling ball? Are you tired of feeling stuffed and bloated after meals but still craving snacks an hour later? Did you know most digestive issues aren't from too much stomach acid, but too little? Just Thrive Digestive Bitters could be the answer. Our modern diet lacks essential bitter compounds to aid digestion. Just Thrive Digestive Bitters features 12 clinically proven herbs that naturally activate your body's digestive processes. It is the most comprehensive bitters product on the market. It comes in an innovative capsule delivery system, so there's all benefit with no bitter taste. Just Thrive Digestive Bitters can help ease bloating and that stuck feeling after meals. It supports complete and comfortable digestion and enhances nutrient absorption. It promotes healthy bile flow, optimizes stomach acid levels, and supports regular, comfortable bowel movements. It even naturally supports GLP-1 production. This helps to curb cravings naturally, promote healthy blood sugar balance, support natural appetite regulation, and enhance energy levels. Just Thrive Digestive Bitters works both immediately and long-term and is safe for daily use. Each bottle comes with an industry-leading money-back guarantee. Love the way you feel or get a full product refund, whether it's been 2 days or 2 months, even if the bottle is empty. Visit justthrivehealth.com and use the code LOVELY for a discount exclusive for our listeners. Thank you, Just Thrive.
I also want to talk about sensitivity because it's been framed as a negative thing. And if you think about it historically, one of the roles in women back in the day when we lived in like small villages and tribes, one of the ways that we kept ourselves and our babies safe was by being extremely attuned to our environment. Mm-hmm. Whether that was someone who tried to come into the tribe or an animal or a person, the reason that we're so sensitive is a survival mechanism. It's what allows us to get that spidey sense that says that guy or that person is not safe. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get the hell out of here. But again, because we've been conditioned that, well, even though that guy's creepy, maybe he's your uncle, you're going to give him a hug anyways, or you're not leaving this room because he's family, or whatever that is. We have been taught and we have learned to ignore some of those sensitivities, if you will. But those are actually a superpower. Like those, again, it's all feedback.
Yes.
If you pay attention to the feedback, your body will guide you towards better health and more energy. But most of us, again, for many reasons, have been taught to distrust our body. So instead of looking at it as, ooh, I feel a bit anxious, maybe there's something in the environment that's a bit off. No, we say, you have an anxiety problem. Here's a medication to make you less sensitive and see you.
Yes,
And there's
exactly.
nothing wrong with medication, but again, anxiety is a flag. It's a signal that something
Mhm.
feels unsafe.
Yes.
And when
Yes.
we just slap a band-aid over it, we're not doing ourselves any favors.
No, I absolutely agree. And it's so important to have conversations like this. Um, mm, Removing the sensitivity for women is another way we're being pushed towards just being little men,
Yeah.
right?
And
And
ignoring some of our inherent gifts. Like
yes, it's our
women are
biology.
it's our biology. Women are very observant. Our brains are literally designed, especially if you have children. Like your brain literally rewires so that you do hear every sound and that you notice the little change in the facial
Yes.
expression that tells you that your kid is like those are superpowers.
Yes.
It's not a weakness, it's not a default. And the other thing about being sensitive, and I think this is Glennon Doyle who said it originally, like it just means you're paying attention. How
Mm,
can you not cry or be enraged when you watch the news right
a
now?
hundred
Like
percent.
I'm more worried about people who aren't angry and who aren't sad. It
Yes.
means to me they're numb and they're not paying attention.
Yes. 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 Absolutely. 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 So let's come back to something you talked about a few minutes ago.
Mhm.
You mentioned iron deficiency anemia, and this is a pet cause of mine, if you will,
Yes. Okay.
because I see it so often in my clinical practice and essentially nothing being done about it. And I just don't feel that that is acceptable. So, this is a big, big issue. As you said, once we are into perimenopause, we're bleeding heavier, the periods are coming more frequently, and we're bleeding heavier. And we may have lots of times, I'm sure you see this too. Women have been anemic, oh, my, since the last pregnancy, but the doctor said that would take care of itself eventually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Meanwhile, you're supposed to handle a newborn when you've got a hemoglobin of what? Really low, right? Or ferritin that's really low. So I don't find that acceptable at all. And I don't understand why it's not being better managed. And I've done multiple episodes on the show of talking about this subject, but I'd love to hear this is something you talk about on your Instagram. Please, people, if you have not gone right now and followed Dr. It's at Sarah Vadeboncoeur. Can you spell
Yeah.
that for us, please?
Yeah. SarahVadeboncoeur.
Perfect. Thank you. Please follow Dr. Sarah's Instagram because you drop these little nuggets and it's like, yes, why aren't we paying better attention to this? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on iron deficiency anemia for women.
Well, the first thing is it's literally an epidemic. If we look at worldwide stats, there are literally millions of people in the world, women especially, who are at risk for iron deficiency. And the big part of that is because we bleed. So it's something that you should get tested every year. And one of the things I encourage women to do is to get a copy of your results. Do not settle for normal is
Exactly.
fine. It's
Yep.
not. So in Ontario, where I live, they recently changed the cutoffs, and I'm hoping this will spread elsewhere. But in Ontario now, if your ferritin, which is like the main test we use to assess iron, is under 30, you have iron deficiency. If it's under 50, probably still iron deficiency. And the new range says that a normal iron store should be above 100. I can count on one hand the
Yeah.
number of women I've seen in 14 years who have a ferritin above 100.
A
It's
hundred. Yeah.
extremely, extremely rare.
100%. Yeah.
And to trigger some of that anger we were just talking
Mm.
about, most men are walking around with a ferritin somewhere between 2 and 500.
Oh,
And but we are supposed to, like you said, raise the
yeah.
babies and go to
Under
work.
10. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Ferritin under
it's
10.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fine.
12, no problem.
It'll
You're
recover. Yeah.
you're
You'll
not
recover.
fine.
Yeah. You're just going to keep bleeding for the next 6 weeks postpartum, but you're
Yeah,
fine.
you're fine. Don't worry about it. So This is something I'm so passionate about because it's such an easy, inexpensive thing to fix and it impacts so many things. Iron deficiency, fatigue is a huge one. It increases your risk of anxiety and depression. It
Hmm.
increases your risk of postpartum depression.
Yep.
It gives you brain fog and memory problems, and you feel cold and you can't work out and your hair falls out of your head. Like there's so many things that happen with iron deficiency. So please get your levels tested, ask for your actual results. I created a whole course called the Iron Deficiency Fix to help guide women to know what your results mean and what the heck to do about it, because this is such a common problem. But it's something that we need to do a better job managing because it affects so many women, and there's literally no reason why we can't fix it.
Yep. 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 The conspiracy theorist in me goes, it's just another way they keep us small and
Oh,
sick and
yeah.
unwilling to fight,
Yeah.
right?
I always
Uh,
joke, like, I want to do an experiment where we just draw men's blood out till their ferritin is like 12 and be like, okay, go human now.
Go
See,
on.
see how it feels. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Go on and run your corporations. Go on
That's
and
right.
stay up all night taking care of your babies. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So
I know.
report back and tell us how you feel.
It's so good. That would be, you see, a few years ago, there was sort of this trend where it was somebody had figured out to put a TENS machine on a man
Yes,
and
I saw that. To
to
mimic
show,
menstrual cramps, and
yes.
they were dying. They
Oh,
were
they
dying.
crumpled, right? They crumpled. And you and I know that. We know that not only as women, but we also know that because we're women taking care of women in our practices. We know how devastating these things are, but what options do we have? We just can't complain. I love that we're shit disturbing today. It's so good. Where can women find the program you just talked about?
Yeah, if you go to my website, which is drsarahv.ca, all my different programs are listed there, including that iron deficiency fix.
Which is fantastic. Can you give us a little bit of a nugget? If we know we're iron deficient, what kind of supplementation? How do we correct it?
So the biggest thing is making sure you're supplementing enough. So a lot of over-the-counter iron supplements, like a very popular one that's a liquid, is not sufficient. So you need between 60 and 100 milligrams of iron a day. So make sure that if you are taking a supplement that you're getting enough iron. And then the other big thing is if you have heavy periods, we need to treat that
Mhm.
because you can take iron till the cows come home. If you're hemorrhaging every month, it's not going to fix the problem. So there's also a special module in that program about
Excellent.
managing heavy periods because that's a really common reason why women are low in iron.
Yes, and if your doctor says to you, of course you have heavy periods, your perimenopause will stop eventually, buckle up, buttercup, etc., that's not acceptable. You
That's not an answer. Yeah.
no, no,
No,
no.
there are lots of treatments and
Yes,
that's in that program. I go through
great.
some are very invasive and some are not invasive, but you need to know what your options are and pick one that works for you.
And if someone presents to you the option of a hysterectomy but with nothing else as an option, that is not an acceptable answer either. Okay?
Yeah.
We don't just whip things out. We don't do it without really good reason. Without really good reason. And Sarah, we have to acknowledge the ladies that are heavy bleeding with extreme pain. That may be the best option for them.
100%. I have
And that's
patients where I'm
acceptable.
like, you should strongly consider a hysterectomy, especially
Yes.
if they're still several years away, probably from menopause. But IUDs, a lot of women are kind of like anti-IUD, but then when we talk about the benefits, a lot of times they end up choosing that, and it can be a great option. So
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of informed consent. I
Yes.
want you to know what all your options are. Just because I'm a naturopathic doctor doesn't mean I'm not going to talk to you about IUDs and birth control.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you all your options, and then we decide together which of those options is best for you. Um, but women need to know that they have options. And yeah, just waiting till you go through menopause is not, it's not a treatment. It's not an answer for most women.
No, it's not. It's an unacceptable and uneducated answer is
Yeah.
what I would say. All right. You've mentioned your website. We've told people where to find you on Instagram. I have a couple of questions I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to set the groundwork for the first of the two questions I'm going to ask you. And that is, I learned in the last couple of years that there are countries around the world that do a much better job of helping women with things like time off if we have menstrual issues, headaches,
Mhm.
or because as you know, so many women have terrible migraines with their periods, or menstrual pain. We know that there are countries that do a much better job taking care of women postpartum,
Yes.
and we're starting to see countries, I believe Canada is in this category, although I haven't heard much about this recently, but like the UK, all women in Canada are going to have access to hormones, whether it's oral contraceptives or contraceptive hormonal contraceptives or HRT. I think our government's probably busy putting out
Promotion.
shitstorms,
Yeah.
other stupid things right now. It's putting out fires. Let's be that. Let's there. That's a bit of my perimenopausal rage. I get
Oh,
tiny
I love it.
bit. Hey, I didn't repress it, right?
Exactly.
Anyways, when I heard this, I started to think about, well, what if we could structure ourselves a paid menopausal leave? Something that our governments gave us, just like in Canada, we have access to the maternity leave for moms, or dads can take it too. There's a paternity leave option as well here in Canada. So, my question to you is, if you could design yourself a menopausal leave where you had a year to self care
Hmm.
for in preparation for the next chapter of your life, and your income was supported, you had access to insurance that covered all of the things necessary, or let's say there was a bursary that said here's $10,000 where you can hire the people you want to hire, what would that look like for you?
This is so exciting. I love this question. The first thing that comes to mind, and this just tells you how much I love sleep, is I would just get lots of sleep, which I already do, but sleep is a cornerstone for anything. And anything you do, if you're sleeping well, everything else is going to be better. So I would get lots of sleep. I would do more of my strength training that I've already been starting to do. I would surround myself with other perimenopausal women because so much of what happens is that women feel like they're the only ones experiencing things, and we still assume that things are broken or wrong. And even though there's been so much more conversation around perimenopause, there's still so much confusion. And so I would really want to surround myself with other women who are going through it so that we could go through it together in like a supportive way. Um, I would line up a great team. So, a family doctor, a therapist,
Mhm.
a naturopathic doctor, and a pelvic floor physio to keep my vagina and my bladder healthy and happy.
Yes, ma'am.
Those often start to also change. Um, and I would just spend more time, like create more time with my partner. And I think this is something that so many women struggle with around low libido. And some of it is hormonal, but honestly, most of it is, if we go back to those tabs that are open in your mind, your libido is one of those tabs. But chances are it's getting no action because you're busy trying to manage the other 400 tabs that are open at all times, right? So could we close off some of those other tabs?
Sorry, I
So
got excited there.
I know we're talking about sex,
I
but
know.
like if we actually were more relaxed and got sleep and weren't trying to do 400 things every day,
Yeah,
we would want more sex.
yeah,
The
yeah.
reason we don't want sex is because our brain is like, girl, I've got 300 other fires that I don't have time to even think about that.
Yes, yes.
So creating those opportunities for connection and closing off some of those tabs, those are some of the things that I would do. And I would read because I'm a giant nerd and like nothing makes me happier than having my nose in a book. And I would go for lots of walks. And the other thing, because I think there's such like a negative, still some negativity around menopause. I also think it's such a beautiful time to take stock. Again, the anger is there to help you like literally do an inventory of your life.
Yes.
Take inventory of your life, start to like let go of some of the crap that doesn't serve you and that is not good for you anymore. And think about what you want to do in this next chapter. Like, what drives the work that I do is that getting to work with women has taught me that women are friggin' amazing.
Oh, yeah, we are.
We're incredible.
Yes.
And I want us to share our gifts and like live fully, whatever that looks like, whether it's public or not, I don't care. But I think menopause can be this beautiful opportunity where you're not pleasing everyone as much and you're more confident, hopefully, and you're not bleeding every month anymore. And like, how do you want to deploy this like next stage? I think it's
Mm.
such a beautiful time to like literally just step into our power. So,
Yeah.
like, I'm excited to get older and I want that for other women. Like, this idea that it's all downhill from here is nonsense.
Yep. 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 I totally agree. I think when you said what you did about anger, I think anger, if it has a word associated it with it, it's move. Like
Yes.
get going.
Yeah.
Get going.
Do something.
Yes.
Do something.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. I love that. So thoughtful. And I can tell you, as someone who's got a few years on you, that the deeper I am in my perimenopause, the more my satisfaction with things grows.
I
It's
love that.
different. I'm not a party anymore to the pull and push of hormones that I had been for many years. Although when my period does come, you can bet your ass I'm feeling it. Although it's not as much of a tidal wave, which is also interesting too. But I love it. It's and yes, you're right. Working with women is so satisfying. We are amazing. We
We
need
are.
to, yeah, yeah, we need much better platforms to demonstrate that, like this conversation. Final question, Sarah, is this: knowing what you know now, what would you tell your younger self?
I heard you ask this to another guest, so I had time to think about it. And what I would tell my younger self is don't tie your worth to your productivity.
Mm,
And I think
Lord.
yeah, for a lot of us high achievers, we learned very early on that hard work and performance were the way to get love and to get ahead in life. And that has brought me lots of wonderful things. And it also means that when I was off sick last week, after 3 days, I was losing my shit
Mhm.
because I have a really hard time being idle. And I have a really hard time when I get taken out of my work when it's not by my choice. So I think one of the things that I would want my younger self to know is that I am worthy independent of how much I do or how much I achieve. I'm just worthy because I am. End of story. And I think that would have saved me a lot of fatigue and some therapy and some burnout.
Yep.
So that would be my message to my younger self.
I think that's a great message and one I absolutely and utterly resonate with.
I thought you might.
Yes, yes, we're so much more alike than we are
Hmm.
unalike, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Sarah Vadeboncoeur, naturopathic physician, thank you for joining me on the Not Your Mother's Menopause podcast.
Thank you for having me.
The information and other content provided in this show or in any linked materials is not intended and should not be construed as medical advice, nor is the information a substitute for professional medical expertise or treatment. We are doctors, but we aren't your doctor. Seek your doctor's opinion. If you or any other person has a medical concern, you should consult with your healthcare provider or seek other professional medical treatment. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something that you have heard in this podcast or in any linked materials. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The opinions and views expressed on this page and in this show have no relation to those of any academic, hospital, health practice, or other institution. Thank you.